"We've decided only real family can use the beach house from now on," Dad announced at Sunday dinner, sliding a shiny new key across the table to my stepbrother Tyler, who accepted it with a smirk I'd grown to despise over 20 years. Mom nodded approvingly, adding, "You never appreciated it anyway, Natalie. You barely visit anymore." But why were they giving away keys to a property that had been legally mine since I was 19 years old, deeded to me by my grandmother 3 years before she died? I set down my fork carefully. "Interesting decision, Dad. Except there's one small problem." "What problem?" He was already turning back to his steak, dismissing me as he'd done my entire adult life. I reached into my purse and pulled out a document I'd carried with me for 15 years, waiting for exactly this moment. "The beach house isn't yours to give away. It's mine. Has been since 2009. Grandma left it to me, and only me, in her will. You've been my guests for 15 years. The table went silent. Tyler's smirk vanished. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. And Dad looked at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "That's impossible," he finally managed. "That house has been in our family for generations, it has. And now it's in mine. Would you like to see the deed?" My grandmother, Eleanor Hartwell, bought the beach house in 1962 with money she'd saved from her own career as a court stenographer. This was unusual for the time, a woman owning property independently, without a husband's name on the paperwork. But Grandma Eleanor was unusual in every way that mattered. She'd raised my father, Richard, as a single mother after my grandfather died young. She'd worked 2 jobs to send him to college. She'd sacrificed endlessly so he could have opportunities she'd never had. And he'd repaid her by becoming exactly the kind of man she'd spent her life avoiding. Dad married my mother when I was 2 years old. By the time I was 5, he'd already started treating me differently than my half-brother Tyler, who arrived the year after the wedding. Tyler was his, in a way I apparently never could be, biologically, emotionally, completely. The favoritism was constant and unsubtle. Tyler got new bikes, I got Tyler's hand-me-downs. Tyler got private school, I got public. Tyler got encouragement, I got criticism. Tyler got love, I got tolerated. Grandma Eleanor saw everything. She never confronted Dad directly, that wasn't her style, but she made her preferences clear in other ways. She invited me to spend summers at the beach house while Tyler went to expensive camps. She taught me to cook in her sunny kitchen, to fish off the pier, to find constellations from the Widow's Walk. She told me stories about my real grandfather, the one I'd never met, and about building a life on your own terms. "This house is special," she told me once, when I was 16 and crying over another slight from my parents. "It's the only thing I ever owned that was truly mine. No man's name on it. No debt attached. Just mine. It's beautiful, Grandma. It will be yours someday, Natalie. I've made sure of it." I thought she was speaking metaphorically. I didn't know she'd already had the paperwork drawn up. Grandma Eleanor died when I was 22, after a swift battle with pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis came in March, she was gone by July. I was devastated. She'd been the only person in my family who made me feel like I belonged, the only one who saw me clearly and loved what she saw. Losing her felt like losing my last anchor to something real. The will reading was 2 weeks after the funeral. Dad expected to inherit everything, the beach house, her savings, her modest investment portfolio. He'd already been talking about renovations, about finally modernizing the property, about turning it into a rental for passive income. The attorney read the will with practiced neutrality. "To my son Richard, I leave my eternal love and the hope that he'll someday understand that favoritism is just neglect wearing a smile. To my grandson Tyler, I leave the grandfather clock in the hallway, which has never worked properly. Perhaps you can relate. To my granddaughter Natalie, I leave everything else. The beach house at 847 Ocean View Drive. My savings accounts. My investment portfolio. And this advice, never let anyone make you feel like a guest in your own life." The room exploded. Dad contested the will immediately, claiming Grandma had been mentally incompetent, manipulated, deceived. His lawyers fought for 2 years, but Grandma had anticipated this. She'd had her mental competency certified by 3 independent physicians. She'd recorded video testimony explaining her decisions. She'd left a paper trail so thorough that the judge ultimately sanctioned Dad for frivolous litigation. The beach house was mine. Legally, irrevocably mine. But I made a decision that I'd later question. I let my family keep using it. I was 22, fresh out of college, drowning in the grief of losing the only person who truly loved me. I didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't want to draw lines in the sand that would make every holiday, every family gathering, a battlefield. So I told Dad he could use the beach house whenever he wanted. I paid the property taxes and maintenance costs myself, treating them like rent for family harmony. I kept the deed in a safe deposit box and never mentioned it. For 15 years, my family used my property, enjoyed my inheritance, and treated me like I was the outsider. Until tonight. Dad's face had gone an interesting shade of purple. You're lying. Mother would never, she loved this family. She loved me, Dad. She tolerated you. There's a difference. I unfolded the deed and laid it flat on the table. Property at 847 Ocean View Drive, deeded to Natalie Grace Hartwell on March 15, 2009. That's my signature. That's the county registrar's stamp. That's 15 years of property taxes paid by me. Mom snatched the document, scanning it frantically. This can't be legal. We've been maintaining that property for years, with my money. The account that pays for maintenance, repairs, and utilities? It's in my name. I've been funding it since Grandma died. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Would you like to see the transaction history? Tyler finally found his voice. This is insane. You've been lying to us for 15 years. I wasn't lying. I was being generous. I let you use my property because I thought family mattered more than ownership. I looked at Dad. I thought maybe, if I was nice enough, patient enough, giving enough, you'd eventually treat me like I belonged. Instead, you just decided to lock me out of my own house. We didn't know. You didn't ask. You just assumed. Like you've assumed everything about me my entire life. I stood up from the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me those new keys, all of them. You're going to return any personal property you've left at the beach house. And you're going to accept that your access to my property is now revoked. Dad stood up too, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You can't do this. We're your family. You changed the locks on my house and gave the keys to someone else without even telling me. What part of that says, family, to you? We were trying to simplify things. Tyler and Madison are getting married, they wanted to use it for the honeymoon, then Tyler can rent a hotel like everyone else. Or maybe, I turned to my stepbrother, your parents can buy you a beach house. They've certainly spent enough on you over the years. Consider this me evening the score. Tyler's fiancée, Madison, had been watching the drama unfold with wide eyes. Tyler, you told me the beach house was your family's property, it is? She's lying, she has to be. I can have my attorney send you the verification paperwork tomorrow if you'd like, Madison. I smiled sweetly. Public records are wonderful things. The county assessor's website shows me as the owner of record since 2009. Feel free to check, Madison pulled out her phone. 30 seconds later, her face told everyone what she'd found. Tyler. It's in her name. It's been in her name for 15 years. The drive to the beach house took 90 minutes. I could have waited until morning, but something in me needed to see it tonight. Needed to reclaim it physically after reclaiming it legally. Needed to walk through rooms that had been mine all along but had never felt like it. The house was dark when I arrived. I'd called a locksmith from the car, emergency service, expensive, worth every penny. He met me in the driveway, changed all the locks in 40 minutes, and handed me the only set of new keys. Nice property, he said, looking at the weathered shingles, the wraparound porch, the view of the ocean glittering under starlight. Family place? It was my grandmother's. Now it's mine. Well, you're all set. Nobody's getting in without your permission now. After he left, I walked through the house slowly, turning on lights, opening windows, breathing in salt air and memories. The kitchen where Grandma had taught me to make her secret clam chowder. The living room where we'd played cards during summer storms. The bedroom I'd slept in every July and August of my childhood, with the window that faced east so the sunrise would wake me for early morning fishing. Everything was the same, but different. My parents had redecorated over the years, removed Grandma's vintage furniture, replaced her handmade quilts with generic bedding from Pottery Barn. They'd tried to erase her from the space she'd built. But they couldn't erase the deed. They couldn't erase the truth. I sat on the porch swing, watching the waves roll in, and finally let myself cry. The fallout came fast and furious. Dad called 17 times the next day. I let them all go to voicemail, then listened to his messages evolve from outrage to bargaining to threats. Natalie, this is absurd. Call me back immediately. Okay, let's talk about this like adults. Maybe we can work something out. If you don't return my calls, I'll have no choice but to pursue legal action. I forwarded that last one to my attorney who drafted a response on official letterhead reminding my father that the property was legally mine. That his previous litigation had been unsuccessful and that any further harassment would be met with appropriate legal action. He stopped calling. Mom tried a different approach. She showed up at my office 3 days later, dressed for sympathy in a modest black dress and minimal makeup. Natalie, please. Can we talk? I had my assistant show her to the conference room. When I joined her, she was already crying. I don't understand why you're doing this to us. We're your family. We love you. Do you? Because for the last 20 years, I've been treated like an afterthought at best and an intruder at worst. Tyler got everything: attention, money, support, approval. I got told I should be grateful for whatever scraps were left over. That's not fair, isn't it? Let's count, Mom. Tyler's college tuition, paid in full. Mine, loans I'm still paying off. Tyler's first car, new BMW for his 16th birthday. Mine, a 10-year-old Honda I bought myself. Tyler's wedding, you've been planning it for a year, offering to pay for everything. My wedding, if I ever have one, something tells me I'd be on my own. We've always done our best. Your best for Tyler. For me, you've done the minimum required to maintain appearances. I leaned forward. Do you know what Grandma wrote in her will? She said favoritism is just neglect wearing a smile. She saw it, Mom. She saw how you and Dad treated me differently, and she spent the last years of her life making sure I'd have something that was truly mine. Mom's tears had dried up. In their place was something harder. Eleanor always did like to cause trouble. Eleanor saw the truth. That's different. So what now? You're just going to cut us off? Refuse to let us use the beach house ever again? I haven't decided yet. But I know one thing, I'm done pretending that crumbs are the same as a seat at the table. If you want a relationship with me, a real one, not just access to my property, then things need to change. What kind of changes? You can start by acknowledging what you did wrong. Not just the locks thing. All of it. 20 years of treating me like I was less important than Tyler. 20 years of making me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. Mom stood up, gathering her purse. I think you're being very dramatic about all this. We've always loved you, Natalie. If you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. She walked out without another word. Tyler's wedding was 3 months later. I wasn't invited, which surprised no one. Madison had done her research after the dinner disaster, looked into the family history, talked to distant relatives, pieced together the pattern of favoritism that I'd lived with my entire life. She'd tried to convince Tyler to reach out, to repair the relationship, but he'd refused. She stole our beach house, he apparently told her. She's dead to me. Our beach house. The entitlement was almost impressive. I spent the weekend of his wedding at the actual beach house, sitting on the porch swing, reading, swimming, cooking Grandma's recipes in Grandma's kitchen. I'd started the slow process of undoing my parents' renovations, bringing back the vintage furniture from storage, replacing the generic bedding with quilts I'd found at estate sales, restoring the character they'd tried to erase. It felt like bringing Grandma back to life, one piece at a time. Aunt Rosa, my mother's sister, who had always been kind to me in her quiet way, called that Sunday. I heard about the beach house situation, she said. And the wedding? How are you holding up? Better than you'd think. There's something freeing about finally stopping the pretense. Your mother's furious. She's been telling everyone you stole Eleanor's property through manipulation and deceit. Of course she has. The truth doesn't fit her narrative. For what it's worth, I don't believe her. I remember how Eleanor doted on you. You were her favorite person in the world. Rosa paused. She would have been proud of you, Natalie. Standing up for yourself. Refusing to keep quiet. Thank you, Aunt Rosa. That means a lot. Will you let me visit sometime? The beach house, I mean. I have so many memories there, summers with Eleanor, before everything got complicated. I smiled, watching the waves from the window. You're welcome anytime. Real family always is. 2 years have passed since that dinner. I've transformed the beach house into something Grandma would recognize, her furniture, her quilts, her recipe cards pinned to the kitchen corkboard. I've also made it my own, adding pieces I've collected over the years, creating a space that honors the past while embracing the future. I rent it out occasionally, to carefully vetted guests who appreciate its history and character. The income covers maintenance and then some. The rest goes into a fund I've established in Grandma Eleanor's name, providing scholarships for first-generation college students, the kind of opportunity she never had. My parents have made occasional overtures. Dad sent a birthday card last year with a check inside, the first money he'd ever given me voluntarily. I donated it to the scholarship fund and sent him a thank you note with the receipt. Mom calls every few months, always with some excuse. She was cleaning out old photos and found some of me. She heard about my promotion at work. She's thinking of me for no particular reason. I keep the conversations short and surface level. I'm not ready for more, and I'm not sure I ever will be. Tyler hasn't spoken to me since the dinner. From what I hear through Aunt Rosa, his marriage to Madison lasted 8 months before she filed for divorce. Apparently, the entitlement that had been so charming during courtship became less appealing when she was expected to live with it. I don't feel vindicated by his struggles. I don't feel much of anything about him anymore. He's a stranger who shares some of my DNA, nothing more. What I do feel is peace. For 34 years, I twisted myself into knots trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I accepted crumbs and called them meals. I let people treat my property like their property, my inheritance like their entitlement, my patience like their permission. Grandma Eleanor knew better. She saw the future, saw how they would treat me after she was gone, and she made provisions. Not just the house, though that was the tangible proof, but the message embedded in her will. Never let anyone make you feel like a guest in your own life. I don't anymore. The beach house sits at the edge of the continent, where the land meets the sea, where my grandmother built something that was entirely her own. Now it's entirely mine, not because I fought for it, but because someone who loved me made sure I'd always have it. That's what real family does. They don't change the locks and hand the keys to someone else. They make sure you're never locked out at all. They called it their beach house for 15 years, and I let them believe it because I thought generosity would earn me belonging. Instead, it just taught them that my boundaries were negotiable and my property was communal. But Grandma knew. She always knew. She left me more than a house, she left me proof that someone, somewhere, thought I deserved to own something beautiful. And now I finally believe her.